Hey guys, thanks for watching. This isn't going to be a detecting video. I've got one of those coming up pretty soon. This is going to be more of a history video. But if you're a detectorist, you might want to watch. You might find a cool story in some of the coins that you've been finding. Now, the U.S. coins are pretty busy as far as design goes. There's all sorts of symbols all over the coins. There's eagles and arrows and oak leaf clusters and grape leaves and stars. All sorts of symbols that mean something. But do we know what they mean? Well, there's another symbol too. Now, it doesn't appear recently on coinage, but it's on some of the older coins, and I think we miss it. I know I did. What am I talking about? I'm talking about a little symbol called the Phrygian Cap. Now, I was recently sent a coin by a friend, coin I'd never even touched before, definitely never found. It's a Morgan silver dollar. Take a look at this coin. So here's a Morgan dollar, and this one is in really, really good shape. Now you notice that frumpy looking old cap on Lady Liberty's head? Well, that's the Phrygian Cap. Now, I started studying about this, and I began to find out there are a lot of coins that this little cap appears on in a variety of ways. Here's just some of them. The Phrygian Cap has its origins all the way back in ancient Rome, in particular with the slaves of Rome. Now, the Republic of Rome had conquered a good portion of the known world, and they had many slaves as a result. But you can't think of Roman slaves the same way that we would think of slavery in America. It didn't have as much to do with your nationality or the color of your skin as it did with your economic standing. Many of these Roman slaves were very educated and successful people, and they had the ability to work their way out of slavery and to buy their own freedom. When they did this, they distinguished themselves from other people by wearing these caps. A freedman's cap, a cap of freedom. So how does a hat from ancient Rome, worn by freed slaves, become a symbol of freedom for the United States? Well, you got to go back to a time when the United States wasn't yet the United States. 1765, we're still under British rule, and King George III makes a big mistake. He levies a tax specifically on the American colonies, and it was known as the Stamp Act. Now, the Stamp Act was a tax on paper, specifically legal documents. Any sort of legal documents, wills or property documents, they had to have this stamp on it, and they were taxed. But it also included things like newspapers, even things as simple as playing cards. Now, the colonists felt like if they have to be taxed and the British government had to put a stamp on something like a newspaper, very possible what was printed in that newspaper would be censored and controlled by the government. And that's where a lot of the anger came from. And a revolt soon began to spread through the colonies. And it all started with a group of men known as the Sons of Liberty. The Sons of Liberty formed in 1765, and it was a secret society designed to protect the interest of the colonists. And it contained some pretty notable characters. Paul Revere, John Hancock, Samuel Adams were among them. They chose a meeting place under an elm tree in Boston, and they called it the Liberty Tree. Thousands of people would meet there to protest the taxation that had been levied on them. Well, this sort of behavior picked up pretty good interest across the colonies, and other towns decided to follow suit. The only problem was not every town had a good tree to meet under. So many towns began to erect a pole that had a little red cap atop it. They were called Liberty Poles. These Liberty Poles stood throughout the American Revolution. Fighting occurred around them. The British frequently tore them down, only to have them replaced the very same night. Who came up with the idea of putting a little red cap at the top of a pole? Well, we don't know. But we do know that our founding fathers were some educated and studied men. They studied the ancient works of literature, and I'm sure that they had run across the idea of the Phrygian Cap as being a very good symbol of freedom for the United States. So the Liberty Poles stood, and America won its independence. Then in 1792, America decided that it was going to begin minting its own coins, and putting the Liberty Cap on those coins was just a no-brainer. So I hope you learned something. I hope you appreciate the coins that you have, and the next time you pick up a coin and there's a funny-looking cap on somebody's head, now you know the story behind it.